My name's Dan Selak. I live in Austin, Texas, and I'm glad to be here. My first job after high school was laying in a track under railroad rails with cars running over me that they had manufactured down the line, undercoating boxcars with tar. That was my first job. And I figured, boy, there's got to be something better than this. Luckily for me, the mill went on strike. And then my father and I had a big blow up. So he claimed that since I was the product of a father who had become an alcoholic, that I was going to be no good. I would never amount to anything. And I packed a bag. My mother gave me 20 bucks because she knew I was leaving. I went down to the end of the road, stuck out my thumb, and hitchhiked. I was going to go to Cleveland to get work because most of the kids in our neighborhood were working in Cleveland. So I got as far as Sandusky, Ohio, and the guy I was driving with said, "This is where I live. You want to stop here?" It was late at night. And I said, "Yeah, sure. We'll just have to stop there and I'll take it up tomorrow." I had already spent about $2 of my money, so I was already down to 18 bucks. Now, 18 bucks then was a lot more than now, but still, you're not going to live on 18 bucks very long. So I slept on a park bench. I was waking with the sprinklers coming on before dawn. Went down to a local cafe and had a cup of coffee and a donut. And I asked the waitress, "Is there any place for guys to sleep around here? Any boarding houses?" And she said, "I think there's one I heard about down the street, such and such address." So I looked it up, went down there later in the morning after I cleaned up a little bit. And the woman said, "I have one bed left in the attic." And I said, "I'll take it." It was $3 a week or some ridiculous amount. And I was sleeping with a bunch of guys who obviously had not done very well. And then I asked her, "Are there any jobs around here?" And she said, "Things are really tight, but I think the boatyard down at the end of the bus trail is looking for work, I heard." She said, "Things are really tight." So I got on the bus, asked her where to catch the bus, told the bus driver what I wanted to do to stop at the boatyard. So we went along for a while. The doors open, he said, "This is it." I looked at the sign, it says employment office upstairs. I said, "Bingo, I'm on my way now." So I went up there and I asked if they were hiring. She said, "Yes, fill this out." So I filled out the application, and as I finished the application, I looked across the street and I looked at the form I was signing, and it had a totally different name than the boatyard. Boatyard was across the street. But what I was hired for is to make these little ceramic items that telephone poles, you wrap their wires around. It's insulated products. So that was my job. So I worked there for a while, and what I did was I worked up a press where you used all four of your arms and legs at one time to press a ceramic product. And you put them on a tray, and they put them in the kiln and dried and make sure they didn't crack and everything. I wasn't very good at it. I was just an 18-year-old kid. I didn't know what I was doing. So I began to realize after about the first week that even the pay I was getting and the few remaining bucks I had, I couldn't afford to eat and sleep and take the bus. So I said, something's got to give here. So there was a place called Cedar Point. You took a ferry across the lake to Cedar Point, which then was beat up and run down. Now it's one of these four flags over Texas things. So it's very successful now. And I applied for work, and they hired me as a busboy. So now I was a busboy on the weekends and working in the factory during the week. But I had money. I could now afford to eat more than one meal a day. Life is good. And I was taking some classes just to bone up. And my minister got a hold of me, Russ Kearns, who was a real character. He was a John Belushi kind of a guy. Just bombastic, a lot of fun to be around. And he said, "Son, you should be a minister." And I said, "I never thought about that." He said, "Let me take you down to Gettysburg and get you into Gettysburg College, which is a prestigious school. It's like Tufts, got an excellent reputation." And I said, "All right." So we spent all night. We drove down to Gettysburg, slept in an old dorm, got up next morning, and he had graduated from there, so everyone knew him and everyone knew his character. So we walked into the Dean of Admissions office, and he just blasted his way through it. and I want to have him transferred into Gettysburg. And the guy was like, all right, whatever you say, Russ. I didn't have a very good academic record at the end of my first semester. I was overwhelmed, but eventually kind of figured things out, and I did end up getting excellent grades after that. My Aunt Betty, my mother's sister, who basically controlled all the money in the family, little that there was. So whenever I was going to college, I figured, how am I going to pay for this? Because my stepfather was sure as blazes not going to help me at all. And while I was in college, my mother sent me 4 checks, each for $5 on my birthday. But Aunt Betty said, look, you go and get whatever aid you can, scholarships, aid, whatever, and I'll make up the difference. And she said, she's a bookkeeper. So she said, my deal is, as soon as you run out of the 50 bucks I sent you, send me a notice about what you spent the money on. Well, cigarettes were buried in laundry, but she never knew that. And then she sent me another 50 bucks. But she paid the tuition bills and made up the difference. So at the end of 3.5 years in college, I graduated in 3.5 years, I have a complete record of what I spent on everything during school year, not summers, but the school year. That amount is $9,863.39. She was a bookkeeper. She kept track of the pennies. And today's tuition at that same school, room and board alone, is $45,000 a year. It's just crazy. Now, different dollars. I mean, it's probably 10 times that amount, but still, it was completely out of sight. Every man had to serve 3.5 years in the service. That was a requirement. Pretty much, there was no draft, so everyone had to. It was just automatic draft. You just automatically went in. So I decided to get in the Navy. I was always kind of fascinated with water and travel and that type of thing. So I applied to the Navy, and they discovered I had the ability to fly. I had the spatial aptitude and all the things it takes to be a pilot. So I became a Navy pilot. I started with a small company called Blythe & Company, and didn't know anything about sales, didn't know anything about the market, about investing, but I learned. And I had, the office manager was somewhat of a trainer, not much, but he gave me some tips and pointers and all that. And again, I got to get some success. And then they merged with another firm, and I said, that's not for me. So I joined another firm, along with some people from my office, in the Hornblower and Weeks, and we were there for 5 years. And then the markets got really bad. And in the meantime, I was rising through the ranks, and I was #1 in the office. And after 10 years in the business, I decided it's time for me to do something even bigger. So I contacted a few firms about opening an office in the place where I live, Westlake Village, and they expressed some interest, but the money wasn't there anymore. It was very tight. Then I met Otis Healy and Smith Barney. And they had an office in Beverly Hills, and they said, we'd like to open a branch office in Westlake Village, or in the Valley. And I said, well, Westlake Village is even better. So they agreed. So I joined them, became the manager, started to train people, hire people, staff. We got up to 7 people in a 5-man office, and then we got a bigger space for about 18 people total, and I was now the manager. And I had great success. I was named the Manager of the Year for the entire industry by our trade magazine. It came out of nowhere. I didn't know they were doing that. The thing I really enjoyed about being a manager is I got to build people's lives and to keep things on a straight and level. I didn't put up with any nonsense. As a matter of fact, I had to fire 1 or 2 in Westlake Village, but I changed people's lives for the better. Made them a better person, which means they pass it on to their clients, which means their families were affected. So it had a great impact. And that was when I was named Manager of the Year. Smith Barney called and said, we have a problem in Beverly Hills. How'd you like to manage Beverly Hills? And I said, I hear it's a mess. So I took the job, why not? And I looked at Joy and I said, here's $100 million, take care of this, I'm going to Beverly Hills. And she did. So she interviewed people for months. And of course, she kept all the clients. Matter of fact, I even liked her a lot of ways, and some people even better than me, which is fine. So we kept the business. We had a couple of people who looked good, but they weren't doing much business. So I said, come on to my office and let's spend 15 minutes talking about this. So I used to tell them, you know, you're a lot better than this. I can tell. I can look at you and I can tell that you should be doing a lot better. Here's how you can do it. I told them little tricks on, if you will, as to how to get to meet more people, get out there in the public. And I said, one of the things you need to do, you need to be in traffic. You need to be out there where people are. And don't join an organization just to gather the roster. Actually, find something you like. I don't care what it is, swimming, archery, bowling, Rotary, anything you like. And join one or two of these organizations. It will take a little while, but eventually you'll start to do business, and that business will result in more business, referrals. I mean, the business basically expands by referrals. And I'm really proud to say that they did that. I've always believed that when a person's growing up, even if you have a bad family situation, all you need is one consenting adult, one person that believes in you. And to start off with, that was my Uncle Dooley. Great man. He and my Aunt Betty never married. They dated for like 30-some years, so when I knew him, he was still not married to Betty, and they lived separately. But he was the one that took me to the circus and helped me build airplanes, and he was basically my dad. Well, the other guy was my anti-dad, I guess you'd call it. So that was the first guy. The second guy was, I think, the teacher who took me under his wing and helped me learn some math so I could do something with it. The third guy was my pastor who got me into college. And then after that, there were various people in business eventually who took me under their wing and tutored me or counseled me or mentored me. So in life, there are people who make a big influence. They may not know at the time, and you may not know at the time, but it gives you a sense that you're worthwhile. So there are times in life where someone picks you up and dusts you off and says you're okay. But one of the better things I've heard, one of my better hires, is a woman who worked for Merrill Lynch called Joy. So I walked into my office one day, and there was a card from Merrill Lynch, this woman named Joy, and she said, we have a mutual friend, Jim Myers, in Phoenix. And I said, that's interesting. So I pick up the phone, I called Jim Myers, and I said, is this business or pleasure? Because I was single, I had divorced Barbara. Been single for about 4 years. I had in my mind who I wanted to meet as a mate. And she sat down, I was so nervous, I could hardly even talk on the phone. So eventually hung up, said hello to Joy, and that started the whole process. Best part of my life. And then about a year after that, we got married. I think everyone needs a hero. Everyone needs someone in the past that you look up to and try to emulate. And yeah, I'm proud of my success, but I also realize that I didn't get here alone. And I'm smart enough to realize what was given, and then I used it. Well, right now I'm a bum. I don't do much of anything except drive old people to hospital appointments and their medical appointments. And I did work as an expert witness for about 10 years, which means I was hired by attorneys to look at a case, and if I agree with the case, then to review all the documents, interview people, and if they don't settle, then go to court and sit there and try and look smart for 10 days while the proceedings happen, and then testify if need be, which I have done a number of times. I enjoyed that. It was fun. Joy. That's the one thing. She is my soulmate. Go and find someone to talk to. And it could be a minister, a good friend, a parent if need be. Everyone needs someone out there besides themselves.